Welcome, wonderful listener. I'm your host, Carrie B. Van Winkle, and you are listening to the Smart and Soulful Money Podcast. I'm a socially responsive investment advisor and certified financial transitionist. This season, I'm naming and exploring important dimensions of what we inherit in our money lives, financial or otherwise, and how we move forward from there. More specifically, I'll be talking about how I work with women and other traditionally marginalized people who are inheritors, helping them move through the experience of inheritance in a way that can positively change how they engage in their money life, achieve their money goals, invest in the way that is aligned with their values, and transform the legacy they want to leave for their loved ones and in the bigger world. Whether you are an inheritor, anticipate this experience in your future or not, we all inherit when it comes to our money lives, whether that is a financial inheritance, inheriting systems, culture, stories, or mindset. While an inheritance is often generations in the making, many of the dimensions of this experience for women and other traditionally marginalized people have yet to be named and understood. Let's begin to do that here. I am so excited to have you join me for Season 3 of the Smart and Soulful Money Podcast. You'll notice that this season is going to be a little different. So this will really be me talking to you about some of the experience my clients have had as they've gone through financial transitions. I hope you'll find it very interesting and helpful, and maybe naming experiences that you've not named before, noticing things you had noticed but had never talked to anybody before. One of the threads that I'll be talking about through the season is going through financial transition. You may or may not know that a couple of years ago, I completed the process to become a certified financial transitionist. What that means is that I'm more equipped with this specialization, with these tools, with context, with language equipped to really support my clients in going through these experiences of financial transition, which typically result from life transitions. I'll get into the details of exactly what I'm talking about and give you some good examples. If you haven't heard episode 16, the last episode of season 2, my conversation with Susan Bradley, the founder of the Sudden Money Institute, and you're intrigued by this idea of financial transitions, you might want to go back to that episode. You might really enjoy it. Susan Bradley named this experience and then started down the road of providing so much research and then creating tools and building a community of advisors who are able to understand what people can be going through when they go through their own financial transitions. What I find with my clients is they're going through life transitions or anticipating a life transition. And at the same time, they're experiencing internal shifts with their own growth, their own self-development, their own ways of wanting to be in the world and being in the world. And also, they are, as we are, a part of a world that is changing and wanting to proactively engage in change that we want to see more of. So they're going through their life transitions or anticipating them. They're experiencing these internal shifts, and all within this context of a changing world. So what are these life transitions? Life transitions that result in financial transitions can be an inheritance, loss of a spouse, so if someone is widowed or a widower, a divorce can be a critical life transition that comes along with financial transition. There can be really exciting transitions like winning the lottery, selling a business, and having that windfall of money, selling a big property and having this windfall. that you had planned for many years. These transitions can be sudden, unexpected, or they can be a long time coming. And each of those kinds of situations and the types of events can kind of come along with their own challenges and opportunities. What I'm really going to focus on most in this season is the experience of inheritance. And there's a reason for that. I find that this is a really important life experience that people are having, where there's a great opportunity for change. And I have clients that I work with where this is a really important way to help them navigate very personal change related to inheritance, and then also navigate bigger changes in the world. And again, proactively engaging in solutions and helping be a part of that positive change in the world that we want to contribute to. There are a lot of resources for people who have lost a spouse, who have become widowed. And while I do have clients in those situations and love helping them as they move through those situations, I feel like there's this space that is not spoken about much. And actually, inheritance can be one of those situations where it is kept very private. It's not something that's talked about. And so it really means that people can have a particularly isolated experience when they're going through an inheritance. Back to why I feel like this is so important is because now, as you may have heard me talk about in previous episodes, now we're in this place of change in our world where things can feel very overwhelming and negative things are happening so often, and at the same time there are some spaces for some really exciting positive change. And so plugging in and engaging in solutions, shifting resources away from feeding the machine of the old way of doing things, the conventional way of doing things, and putting those resources to change the momentum so that we can be a part of creating a world that we want to live in. And that world is made up of these systems. Our economic systems is a big one where my work is rooted in, and the types of change that I help people engage in. It's really within these layers and layers of economic systems, from the very personal, the very local, to the global. So it's very important for me that I help support women and their loved ones, whether that be their life partner or their spouse or family members, maybe siblings or parents or their children, and help them do some things differently, make changes in how they're engaging with their money that are different from the status quo they inherited, transforming systems in a way that really change the legacy that they're leaving as it moves through them and their generation. And so I believe that women engaging in their money life, women inheritors, and this specific focus that I'm talking about here, I really believe that that matters a lot. And it makes a big difference and will continue to make a significant difference the more women are able to know that it's possible and know how to do it, to make some shifts in their money life and their money choices. The experience of inheritance can happen suddenly or predictably. It can happen when you lose a loved one, usually a family member who passes away, or inheritance can happen during the lifetime of that loved one. If a parent, for example, is getting older and doing some estate planning and doing even more intentional gifting to their inheritors. Inheritors can be in their 20s and find themselves with sudden access to a trust that they have been written into. They can be in their 30s and inherit from a grandparent who is gifting or making changes as a part of their estate planning. An inheritor may be in their 40s and have a grandparent pass away. Or they may be in their 50s or 60s and a parent passes away. Inheritance can be experienced in a sudden big change or in steps or phases. Even with these different experiences of inheritance that I've named, I have found that there is one thing particularly that is very common in these experiences, and with different ages, different ways that people inherit. There is this one thing that's really important in the experience of inheriting, and that is what I call the noticing. And so the noticing is this kind of first phase of what happens as the inheritor is experiencing being an inheritor. And it's what I call a kind of awakening to the systems that they find themselves in, the people, and the way the people in those systems are interacting with them or not interacting with them, the power dynamics that they're experiencing. So I'll give you some specific examples of what this phase of noticing can look like. And I would say it comes on just like as we go through different changes and growth in other ways in our life. It comes on quietly and then it gets louder. We excuse it and then over time maybe stop excusing it. And so let me give you an example. An inheritor, let's call her Abby. So Abby's an inheritor. She's in her 50s. She goes to these meetings every quarter with her father, with her brother, and maybe other family members. And they sit around a fancy table on the top floor of a tall building with a trustee and an advisor or a team of financial advisors, maybe an accountant or a team of accountants. And they talk about the money, and they talk about things that do relate to inheritance that she may already be a part of, or be, if not yet a part of, then she will be inheriting in the future. And as they have this conversation, some things can happen in Abby's experience. There are lots of layers to this that you could just probably start to guess and name yourself of this experience for her. It's very possible that her brother and her father speak a lot more than Abby does. A lot of times inheritors, especially women inheritors and others who have historically been marginalized, we can self-silence. So we self-silence because we don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want to look stupid. We don't want to make a bad decision. We don't want to sound like we don't know what we're talking about. We tell ourselves that we're not money-minded, that my brother and my father know better. They know how to talk about this better. They, in a way that is smarter than me. They get it, and I don't. They're going to make better decisions. It doesn't really matter what I have to say anyway. So the self-silencing can really happen. There are all these small things that can happen that really feed into this experience of not feeling empowered. So very disempowering experience. They can be treated in patronizing ways. They can be disregarded, ignored, and feeds their self-doubt, can feed into self-judgment. They can then defer to others and even abdicate their power and decision making to others that they feel like can do better than they can do. So they can end up disconnecting and disengaging. And so Abby has done that over time, she was shut down enough when she did speak up, or given a funny look, treated in a patronizing way, not acknowledged, ignored. Eye contact was made with her brother and her father, but not her in the same way, not treated with the respect and regard that they have been treated with. And so this has all contributed to her just disconnecting as a coping tool and disengaging as a coping tool, and finding spaces maybe in other parts of her money life where she can be more engaged and feel more empowered. Or maybe carrying this experience into other spaces of her money life where she continues to doubt herself, self-judge, and not feel smart and aligned in her money life the way she really deep down would like to feel smart and aligned in her money life. And by aligned, I mean that her money is reflecting her values and what matters to her in the world. She might have spoken up at some point and asked how the accounts were being invested, or why there was a particular company in their portfolio, or if they could do something to support things that she was excited about supporting in the world. And often in the conventional investment world, those are still, you still get funny looks for that. You still get patronizing looks. You still get figurative pats on the head. You still get told, as I have experienced personally before I became a financial advisor, well, honey, I want you to make money, is what an advisor told me when I asked about doing something related to my values, when I asked about socially responsible investing. And so these are really common experiences for inheritors. And Abby's experience is not unusual. Okay, another example, I'll call her Sandra. Sandra's at a family dinner, and this is close family. Her siblings are there. Her parents are there. Maybe some kids are there. Siblings, kids, her kids. And dynamics around the table. Who's talking about what? Again, the males, her brother, her father, are talking about money. And doing it in a very, what looks to her, a very confident way. They seem to really know what they're talking about. They're using language that she didn't totally understand, talking about some of these things that, she feels like go over her head a bit. And they're open and confident in their conversation around money. And she's not really invited to be in on the conversation. She's not intentionally included. This is a familiar dynamic where women and other marginalized people, historically marginalized people, these systems were not made for us. They were made by privileged white men. And so they work and support the success of privileged white men. And the way we communicate, the way we listen to our intuition, listen to our gut, the way we want to feel connected and aligned with our money choices, these are different ways of engaging in the money life than the status quo, which is still very much the status quo. It's still very much changing. And it is changing. It is changing. There is space where it is changing. So back to Sandra. She's at this dinner. And so let me say too that, Barbara Stanny, she's now Barbara Hewson, but the author, Barbara Stanny, who's written many amazing books about women in our relationship with money. One of her tips in getting more comfortable with money and how we engage with money is to expose ourselves to topics around money. So read an article. One of her great simple tips is to read an article every day or read something every day about money. So not only reading, but then, when you're learning something, getting more familiar with something, you're not just reading about it, but you're talking about it, you're engaging, you're getting opinions about it, you're asking questions about it. That's a whole other level of being able to really, move on that learning curve. Reading is one important part of it, but then we need to be able to talk about it, to ask questions, to engage, to be more dynamic in our understanding and thinking and ability to make decisions and ask questions and communicate around money. So all of these things actually work against that. When we self-silence, the way we're treated, the reactions we get, when we are ignored, when we are excluded intentionally or unintentionally, when we are at the family dinner and dad and brother are over talking about the family money that I will also inherit, or she will also inherit, or you will also inherit. And I am clearly not invited to those conversations, or you are clearly not included in those conversations, or if you are, it's not fully a full participant as they are in the conversation. It's not with the same regard on what you have to say, on your input. These are all things that keep women from fully engaging in their money life in a way that is possible, in a way that really you can connect with the power and the opportunity of the money that comes into your life. And this matters because this is an opportunity for you to create change for yourself, for your loved ones, and in the bigger world. Or it's a time that we continue to abdicate that opportunity and power to the men of privilege or others who the systems have been built for. So I'll end with a question for you. As I've talked about this phase of noticing, is there anything that's ringing true for you? Anything that you are already starting to notice about your experience in your money life with these kind of status quo dynamics, with inherited systems, the experience of anticipating an inheritance or already starting to receive inheritance? Have you noticed some of these dynamics already happening for you? What rings true for you? Are there things that you've noticed that I haven't named yet? And how would you name them? What would you call them, that experience, or how would you describe that experience? And I think just starting to name it, starting to talk about it, starting to think about it in a bit of a different way, just more consciously even. It really is the start, like I said earlier, of this phase of awakening to a new way of engaging in our money life that is both smart, informed, confident, focused, clear, strategic. That's smart. And soulful. That's aligned. That's connected to your values and to what matters to you in the world, who matters to you and what matters to you in the world. I'll leave you with that. Thanks for joining me for episode 1, and I look forward to talking with you in episode 2 to continue this conversation. Thank you for listening to the Smart and Soulful Money Podcast. If you have found the podcast helpful, please be sure to leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast player. It really makes a difference. To ensure you get the next episode when it goes live, please hit subscribe or follow. In the episode notes, you can find direct links to follow me on Instagram, sign up to learn about new episodes, and to find out more about my work as a socially responsive investment advisor. Until next time, remember, it is possible to have an approach to your money life that is both smart and soulful.